Let's go! So, Brian Kelly decides to not officially announce who his starting quarterback will be versus Florida State. So, we're going to cover a lot, but I'm going to need you to comment down below if you actually agree with this line of logic, that it is a tactical advantage for LSU to not show their hand at quarterback.
Made a decision, but I'm not going to announce it publicly. Certainly, I think everybody here wants to know who the quarterback is. I get that, but I think it's a tactical advantage for us not to announce it. Look, Florida State played a game. That's an advantage for them. Having the opportunity to play, the advantage for us is that we haven't played.
And I fully agree with them. I think it is crazy if you're in the middle of a quarterback battle where one guy can't separate themselves from the other, why teams decide to announce who the starter is going to be, right? I saw Auburn do that this weekend with TJ Finley. Why not just keep the other team guessing, right? There is nothing really to gain by announcing. Maybe, just maybe, it allows the team and the fan base to just rally behind one person. But in this scenario, there isn't one guy that has clearly separated themselves between Jayden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. Both of them have had really good camps, and there are some benefits for starting both of them, which is very, very interesting. I also found this from Brian Kelly to be more interesting than anything else.
Quarterbacks are similar, I would assume, in their preparation and your play calling. Is
Yes.
that an advantage in that we're not really splitting much up?
Yeah, there's some great similarities between the two of them in terms of what they're able to do. They both run extremely well. They both can make plays outside the pocket, and certainly we don't have to change the play calling. There's not a dramatic difference between the two when it comes to play calling. So you can imagine that, when we're talking about both quarterbacks, this is a 1A and 1B. This is not a 1 and a 2. And both of them, obviously are going to contribute this year.
Boom! I'm looking at you. Yes, you right now. Okay? So, before I continue, I want to say thank you to everyone that has signed up for the PHL Patreon. It is so cool to have the private Discord where I could chat with you guys. We have the Tyrann Mathieu Fantasy Football autograph rookie card giveaway and all that stuff. If you want to learn more, you could DM me. You can obviously just click the link down below and sign up. What are you doing? Also, I do want to clarify that there were bigger and more objective personnel decisions that Brian Kelly made and officially announced in the press conference, right? As you see, this is Garrett Nussmeier working with the ones, and BK said today that more than likely this is going to be your starting offensive line. Will Campbell at left tackle, Frazier at left guard, Deli at center. Right guard will be Anthony Bradford, and Cam Wire more than likely going to be a right tackle. I was a little surprised by that. I thought Cam would remain a backup and Bradford would stay at right tackle, Frazier at right guard, and Shorts at left guard. But it is very interesting, and I'm fine with the starting offensive line. So we shall see what happens. And then Damian Ramos will be your field goal kicker. So two very important things right there. Oh, the first thing here is you are seeing a mesh concept. I think you're going to see a lot of mesh run by LSU. We saw it in the spring game, and we're going to talk more about that in film breakdowns later this week. So I do agree with BK in that back half of the quote right there, that there is a 1A, 1B scenario. And remember, throughout Brian Kelly's Notre Dame tenure, he did rotate his quarterbacks a lot, and I mean a lot, more than you would think a head coach who has won as much as he's done would do, right? And he also had to quote in the spring game that he said that he doesn't necessarily love the idea of having a two-quarterback system. What makes them, to me, different is Jayden is by far the better runner out of the two, and Garrett Nussmeier is the better thrower. He is the cleaner and more mechanical thrower of the two. Now, that is not me saying that Garrett Nussmeier can't run. But, last year, all his games that he played featured games with negative rushing yard totals, okay? And throughout his high school career, I saw where he had a few scrambles versus Koppel in a game. You see him running in the background right here on this play. So maybe he could be effective enough as a runner to be capable as a runner and scary as a runner. He is definitely more mobile than Miles Brennan, and he could be a better runner than even Max Johnson last year. So, yes, but the truth is the zone read game with Jayden Daniels is so much more effective. To be interesting, I do feel, though, the play calling does change. Maybe your base concepts, what you want to do change, but I do think as far as affecting the defense, they do so in different ways, right? And, when I was, and we're going to talk about Florida State's defense, we're going to have a huge, and this is just a minor announcement, we're going to have a huge Wednesday night Florida State defense film study. Stuff that I've seen from Mike Norvell's defense over the years, stuff that I've seen on other Florida State YouTube channels and what they like and don't like. It's going to be a big one, okay? And I'm going to share with you a few things that I think. I got them all written down right here. I think LSU will be able to do offensively versus Florida State. Now we get to me, the more fascinating question, okay? And look, you don't have to comment this down below because I know a lot of people will. Well, we're going to roll with whoever Brian Kelly says we're going to roll with. No duh. We are all behind BK and this team and who he decides who he wants to start in this game. But the more and more I have dove deeper into Florida State stats and analytics and all of that, it is clear that the starter must be Jayden Daniels. And there are a lot of reasons as to why. I mentioned, Mike Denbrock's glance RPO stuff. It's very interesting when you look at this stat, and this is from a very fun Twitter account, Knowles X's and O's, okay? Last year, Florida State's defense was amongst the nation's absolute worst when it came to defending quarterback runs. So what I decided to do, and he mentioned this in a video as well, I wanted to go look at, on these runs, were they design runs? Were they quarterback scrambles? And the funny thing about it was a lot of quarterback scrambles. And I think one major weakness of the Florida State defense, and I did see a little bit of this. They did bring in a transfer linebacker from UCF, number 15. His name slips my mind. He does have a good bit of speed, and I do think he makes their defense a lot better than what they were. But last year, Florida State's defense looked very, very slow, and they do play a thicker lineup up front. They have got some hog mollies in the trenches, okay? And they're big, right? And their linebackers are a little bit thicker. So I do think, especially Jayden as the quarterback, can outrun them in a major, major, major way. So I think that aspect, especially considering that this is going to be a brand new offensive line's first game, I just think it makes it pretty clear that Jayden Daniels should be the guy when you take a look at what Florida State struggled with defensively last year. So while most people actually think Jayden is going to be the starter, I still think Nuss can go out there and get a win for LSU in this season opener. I really do. And I think there are some throws outside the hashes and the numbers that I feel Nuss is better at making. And you see Jayden throwing one here to Evan Francione, a walk-on right here, and this one's actually a really good strike. I do feel Nuss, his arm is a little bit more explosive in making those types of throws. So just my opinion, I do think Jayden, though, gives LSU the better chance to win the more and more I look into it. And keep in mind that Florida State defense, I know it was Duquesne, but they did also face a slower quarterback, and I felt their defense versus pocket quarterbacks, not only this year, but during the Adam Fuller regime, and the Mike Norvell regime at Memphis, I felt that they were better at defending against pure pocket quarterbacks. So now I want to give you, to me, the biggest question mark from the Florida State side when looking at LSU. And I find this to be so freaking crazy. Something that we tend to do as college football fans is just focus in on everything that we do well or don't do well, right? And sometimes we are only consuming, LSU media, right? And, our biggest thing is, okay, we're really going to fool them because they don't know who our quarterback's going to be. And look, I'm sure Florida State is starting to think maybe they're going to play Garrett Nussmeier, but I guarantee you that Florida State is preparing to play Jayden Daniels, and that's where most of their game plan is going to be. So while I do agree with what Coach Kelly had to say about the tactical advantage, I would highly recommend you really think about where Florida State is right now. They are going to prepare for Jayden. However, this actually came from a Florida State writer from 247 Sports, and you're looking at this screenshot right here, okay? Florida State has no clue, and I mean absolutely zero zip zilch nada, what Matt House is going to do, right? And truth be told, we don't either, right? I do feel offensively your install just kind of sort of involves more reps, weeks at a time. I do think defensively you can flip what you do within a week, right? We saw it last year with the LSU defense just in a week, right? It didn't take much for the LSU defense to completely switch up what they were going to do, and you saw what they did versus Alabama, and it threw Alabama off, right? That was the biggest surprise of the game, right? That an LSU defense that had been mostly really, really, really bad just totally scrapped what they had been doing all year long and decided to do tight front, more odd fronts, more exotic blitzes, a lot more cover zero. Durante, don't you remember that? The video games. Engage 8, you saw a lot of that. Well, if you're Matt House, you could put a lot of late install and it be very, very, very effective. Because as someone like me who does a lot, and I mean a lot of practice clip breakdowns and a lot of spring game breakdowns, we are so hungry for LSU knowledge and info. What's really interesting, okay, is LSU's defense has been basic. I mean, basic Becky, who's rushing Tri-Delta this week. It's that basic, right? I don't know what to expect. I really don't. And if you're Matt House, what I would do is kind of like what we talked about in yesterday's video. I would seriously consider seeing what you can do just with your front four and dropping everybody back in coverage. But if that doesn't work, just throw anything at them, right? This defense last year, you saw how quickly they were able to pick up just a brand new scheme. I do think it's easier for defenses to switch up what they are and what they are doing. So that's the thing. The biggest surprise is you see they're looking at 2018 Kentucky and some of the stuff that the Kansas City Chiefs have done. It's very interesting. And part of it, and you see Matt House in the background here, what I find to be really, really, really fascinating is LSU has played a lot of four-man principles, as in four down lineman principles out of a 3-4 look, kind of like what UCLA did defensively last year. We didn't see much tight front, which is what Matt House did at Kentucky in 2018. So I guarantee you the Florida State coaching staff is honestly just trying to figure out what they're going to do. So to me, the biggest surprise and the biggest question mark on Florida State side, and I think this is by far, you get into the debate, the week 0 versus a week 1 kind of thing. I think by far the defensive side of the football is the bigger question than the offensive side of the football, right? Florida State might know who some of your studs are defensively, but they don't know how you're going to line up. So it's very, very, very fascinating. Let me know what you think about this video down below. Obviously, we do have a Patreon bonus on Garrett Nussmeier. To me, the biggest question mark regarding this next year's maturation. If he does end up being the guy, that will be posted. I'll show a link for it down below if you want to see more on how I feel about Nuss and this Florida State matchup, including a Nuss comparison to a quarterback who was drafted last year. That is in the Patreon, okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! And tonight, we're doing some chicken wings. Let's go.